Hey, habit thrivers. If you're ready to rock your next chapter, this is your place. It's time to live your most fit, fearless, and fabulous life. I believe that our daily habits and routines set the foundation for achieving our dream lives and help us find more passion and clarity with less doubt and uncertainty. So let's get cozy. Grab your planner and your favorite beverage and come along with me on this journey of reclaiming your passions and finding new ones along the way. Welcome to the Habit Thrive podcast, a podcast for women in their me now years. Hi, I'm Lorrie, your host, and each week we come together to create habits, routines, and rituals to reclaim our power and our awesomeness to live our best chapters yet. I am over the top excited to bring you today an interview with Suzanne Mongrain-Smith. Suzanne and I are exploring and explaining the world of mantra and chanting and how it can help you with everything from strengthening your breathing muscles to helping with anxiety to expanding the capacity of your heart for loving kindness, especially right here, right now, in this chapter of your life, in this chapter of history, and in February, our heart-focused month. Let me tell you a little bit more about my friend, colleague, and recording artist, Suzanne Mongrain-Smith. Suzanne has dedicated her life to the transformative power of music. She earned her bachelor's degree in music education from the University of Quebec in Montreal in 1990 and has since devoted over 35 years to teaching instrumental music and voice across various educational settings in Ontario and beyond. Her extensive experience with students of all ages, and let me tell you, I am absolutely still a student, underscores her deep belief in how singing can change lives. In July 2020, Suzanne expanded her repertoire by becoming a certified Nada Yoga and mantra teacher. Now retired from the traditional classroom and in her me now years, she's focusing on sharing her expertise through workshops and chanting circle sessions offered in both French and English, helping individuals enhance their well-being and inner peace. In addition to her teaching, Suzanne is a dedicated mantra recording artist. Her Kuvalaya project reflects her passion and soul gifts through original compositions. It is an amazing album. I can tell you that from personal experience. It is called Gentle Awakening, and it's available on all major streaming platforms alongside a single featuring the revered mantra Om Namah Shivaya. The project is arranged and produced by Daniel Chartrand at Studio Sonord, one of Suzanne's earliest music students, which is so cool. And even more cool is that it features support vocals by her daughters. So, without further ado, let's dig into the world of mantra and chanting and how it can become a life-changing habit for you now in this chapter of your life. Welcome, Suzanne, to the Habit Thrive podcast.
Thank you so much, Lorrie, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today with you and your listeners, which I'm a part of.
Yes. Oh, that is.
I love your podcast.
Oh my gosh, so kind of you to say. It's been a journey together over the years, actually. So this is why I am so excited about this chat today. Yes, I am interviewing Suzanne Mongrain-Smith, but it's very much going to be a chat and a discussion. So if you have a coffee, a tea close by, and you just want to sit down and listen to us chat, that's wonderful. And as always, though, if you're out for a ski or you're out for a snowshoe, in fact, we are all about mantra for this discussion today. And the beautiful thing about mantra is that you can take it with you. And so we are going to be diving into why it is so important and helpful, actually, in this particular chapter of our lives. And this particular chapter of history, I'm going to say as well, because I am always recording right in the thick of things. I'm often recording right in the week that I'm releasing the podcast episode. So we are feeling everything that is floating around in the air today. And again, our listeners are from all over the world. And I always feel so blessed and so honored to have this platform, really, just to be able to chat with other people, be able to get conversations going, and especially around ways that we can help ourselves at this time from a personal development, from a mental health perspective, and for the month of February from a heart perspective as well. So we are going to dive into all of that today. But before we start to get into the specifics, Suzanne, can you tell our listeners a little bit about your journey, your story to be where you are today as a recording artist, doing classes and workshops professionally and very much personally using chanting and mantra? So I'm going to turn it over to you to share this with our listeners.
Thanks, Lorrie, for the question. Yeah, so the way I got into chanting and into mantra is that when I was in my 30s, I had young children. I was a professional working, teaching music in school, full-time job, full-time mom, wife, and I was just overwhelmed with everything. I got into a place where the anxiety took over my life. I was feeling out of control and seeking for solutions because I knew there was this one point where I knew that I couldn't keep on going that way. And so consulting with my doctor, he, like most doctors, suggested I'd take some pills to calm my monkey mind and calm down. And so I wasn't sure about that. I was doing research and stuff. But meanwhile, I was getting treatments too from a wonderful healer and who's a friend today. So Aline Laferrière-Accord, and she was treating me, doing some massages, but energetic work as well. And while she was treating me, I was hearing this beautiful music that she had on. And I couldn't pinpoint where it came from and what type of music it was. I couldn't understand the language. And it turned out it was mantra and it was Sanskrit. The artist was Deva Premal. And so that was my point of contact with mantra. And magically, that type of music just calmed me right down. And being a music teacher, no music could do it for me.
Right.
Because as soon as I listened to music, I was going back into my brain, analyzing the voices and the instruments. But somehow this type of music, and because I couldn't make anything of the words, could not kind of latch on to my brain with, making sense of what they were saying. And that really kind of calmed my mind down and my nervous system down. So I got really curious about this and started digging in and doing some research and started practicing mantra and doing classes. I found online classes and started my chanting practice and actually did yoga with you as well at that time. I remember going to your yoga classes and that really helped me as well. The only thing I was not able to do that I thought was helping me was sit down in silence because my mind was so busy.
Right.
So I could probably after a yoga class, asanas, that would calm me down too. But I found out that after chanting, a chanting session, because of the vibrations, because of everything that was happening in my body, I could really, really go inside and I could meditate after. And so the practice of mantra, which became a daily thing for me, really changed the way I felt and the way I was around others. I was so much calmer, didn't need to take any medication. And here I'm not saying not to take any. That's my personal choice. Right. And that's what happened for me. So I just want to mention that because that's important too. But I found peace in mantra. So that's why I'm still to this day. And I'm talking about 30 years ago. Still to this day it's my go-to. It's my everyday practice.
And coming into your first year of retirement, right?
Yes.
And practicing, and I'm going to say sharing your passion. And we are all, so many of us, really, really benefiting from how you are able to dive into this more now, to share further and to create more opportunities. I think it, again, is for some of our listeners who are listening in today, you know chanting, you perhaps practice it. Some of you, this is totally new. And for example, you might have the question, what does chanting and mantra have to do with daily habits, right? Because daily habits, very often we think about, okay, our daily walks and our different types of exercise, our daily yoga. And I'm glad that you brought in that connection to yoga, because you can actually, though, you can chant with or without yoga. You can chant with or without going into, let's say, a mindfulness meditation session. But I love how you just mentioned that it can be a gateway into some of these practices that perhaps you have heard more often from your health practitioner, from your physician, and have read that meditation helps us with blood pressure. Meditation helps us with anxiety. It can help us with sleep. And then so often I hear, oh, but I can't sit still. I have this monkey mind and I get more irritated when I'm trying to meditate. And so to pick up on that, Suzanne, around the benefits of, now actually we can talk a little bit about chanting and mantra first, just in terms of Sanskrit. I think that's extremely important. And I also want to highlight, as you said, that not knowing what the words mean and not having those past associations to particular words that are in songs that we're listening to. I had never thought of that. I had never
Absolutely.
thought of that. And that is now, again, I'm going to be thinking, I won't be thinking of it, and analyzing while I'm doing my chanting, but I will appreciate it. I will appreciate it more. So as we circle or dig in a little bit more around the word mantra and chanting and some of the benefits, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, perfect. My problem with sitting in silence was actually that my brain would just go. And so I needed my mind to attach to something else than trying to analyze what I'm hearing, or even like the thoughts that are coming into my mind. So if I go back to, so why mantra, why Sanskrit, why Nada Yoga, and what's the difference? So Nada Yoga is a form of yoga, and it means nada. The nad means sound, and yoga means union. So it's having union through sound. So as the traditional yoga exercises have asanas and postures, Nada Yoga uses sound to calm your mind and to calm your anxiety and all these wonderful benefits.
Okay.
So it's sound-based yoga,
right,
if you wish. And sometimes they're just sounds. They're just like ahs and oohs. And so Nada Yoga is very much about sound. Now, mantra is a form of Nada Yoga. Mantra is more sounds, but they're words. They're associations of letters.
Okay.
So for instance, everyone has heard Om before. Om is a mantra.
Okay.
And so Om has 3 letters, and those 3 letters together form a word in Sanskrit. And so everyone's chanting Om, but who knows what Om means, right?
Right.
But we all know that it feels good when we chant it because we feel the vibrations. And so Sanskrit is an energy-based language as opposed to a meaning-based language. So when you chant Sanskrit words or phrases, You don't really need to know. And in fact, it's probably helpful not to know what you're chanting, because you're going to feel the effect of these letters and these combinations. So the meaning of the word becomes reality. It really materializes. So it's very, very powerful. It's been practiced thousands and thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
So it's by mystics in India. It's an Indian language. And so the power of mantra really lies into the vibrational qualities of every letter and the combination of those letters. And that's what really, when I chant in mantra, either I know the meaning or I don't know the meaning, I go inwards and I just feel. And while I'm feeling what I'm chanting and I'm actually using my voice to chant, there's kind of no room for thinking about other things, because it's, you're in the exercise of doing this.
Yes.
So that really much puts you in the moment and puts you into awareness of your body, of, hearing your voice. And that's a whole other story. Mantra and chanting and singing, chanting mantra has nothing to do with performance, has nothing to do with having a beautiful voice. It's all about the experience and how your voice, your unique voice, because we all have, just like we have different fingerprints, our voice is all unique. And so that voice was given to us at birth, and we've been using it all our lives to communicate. And it's also a tool that we can use to heal ourselves. So we have to learn to love our voice for all that it's capable of doing for us, not just communicating with others, but also using it to heal ourselves and to calm ourselves and to express ourselves.
Oh, that is so beautiful. And I so appreciate you speaking to the feeling, and I'm one of them that, was early on in my singing career in grade 3, grade 4, was told to mouth the words to "O Canada" during a particular session. And I mean, that happened to I'm hoping it's not happening as much.
So many people come with those stories to me. So many people over the years. I've heard that story so many times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would say, sadly, like more people than not have had that experience at one time in their life where someone has told them to stop singing, or, and that can really, really affect someone to the point that they don't want to express themselves through their voices, and they don't want to sing in public, and it's our birthright, and it feels so good to be able to use our voice in that way. And I think no one should refrain from chanting or singing ever.
Oh, I love that. And we've talked about this in previous podcast episodes about coming back to some of the things that we know in our heart felt good for us. And it was perhaps even confusing why we stopped doing some things. We've talked about that in relationship, even to physical activity and to playing instruments and to singing. And for some of you who are listening, it was a positive experience, but you've moved away from it because, again, it's, been busy and there have been different priorities over the last few years. So here we are in this chapter of our lives. Here we are in our me now years, and thinking about, well, what brings me joy? And I've always found that listening to you sing or listening to you chant. And I've said that to you before, Suzanne, where you have sent me a mantra and it has brought me to tears. And I'm talking about, and here's me talking about joy and happiness. And But the emotional, it was
Well,
it
emotions. Yeah.
emotion,
Yes.
emotion. And
Yes.
that just again popped into my head. And I truly think sometimes it's because initially when I started, let's say, working with you on this, I was coming back to my voice. So I think that was part of the
Hmm.
process as well, that your beautiful voice and the repetition and the confidence that comes from the repetition, because coming back to this and being a, let's say, very beginner, as you do it more, you get stronger and you get louder, and it can become very emotional. It may not, but it feels very releasing, and it
Yes.
makes me laugh sometimes when I'm like at the top of my lungs, right? And thinking
Yeah.
years ago I would never have pictured myself doing this. And that combination, again, as you said, it's the relationship. It is sound yoga, nada yoga. There's a relationship to Ayurveda when you talk about thousands of years of these connections, of the vibrations in Ayurveda, the vibrations and the channels and the flow. It's about letting go of and releasing blockages and having our prana move through our bodies. And what better way than to keep our breathing muscles strong and keep our connection to our voices, to our truth, to our confidence as we are being in or through these wisdom years, as other podcast, I think it was Jane Hogan, who said, wisdom years, which I absolutely
I love that.
love. Yeah, I love that too. And so when we come back around to the idea of, okay, how, if you want to give this a try, for those of you who are listening and you're like, well, how do I begin? Where do I start? Where do I go? And as we talked about some of the benefits, but I want to come back before we dig into that a little bit more, but the spiritual and the scientific. You get that question. I get that question. I get the question around yoga. Is it religious? Is it spiritual? And we've talked about, again, the scientific support for chanting, for mantra, specifically to one study from the Alzheimer's Association. Do you want to speak to that?
Hmm. Sure. Yes, it is a question that is often pops up about yoga and religion. So, being raised Catholic, I myself, when I started getting into yoga, was questioning. So, is this religion? Is this? And it's it can be if you want it to be, because yoga is part of some religions. So Buddhism, Hinduism have yoga as a practice, but it can be totally separate as well, because it's a practice. It's a breath practice, it's voice practice, it's body practice, it's exercise. And so, depending on your belief and your needs, you can decide if you want to connect spiritually to it. And if it doesn't mean anything to you spiritually, you know what? There's a whole bunch of benefits, just science backed benefits of doing it. And it has nothing to do with religion. So I think like it would be really, really sad for someone to not get involved with it at all for that reason only, because you can withhold a lot of benefits and good information and maybe a practice that you'll embrace the rest of your life. And it would be sad to be doing this because of a belief, but it's not a how do you say when you say it's a limiting belief,
A
right?
limiting belief.
A
Yes, yes.
limiting belief. So if we go back to the scientific proofs, so it's been proven with a particular mantra, but also just chanting in general, all mantras. So scientific studies have shown stress reduction in people who are chanting because it lowers cortisol levels. It enhances the vagal tone. So your vagus nerve, which is responsible for your parasympathetic system, right?
Hmm.
So chanting really calms that vagus nerve. And actually, if you search what are the three top things to calm your vagus nerve, it says breathing, number one, breath exercise. Number two is chanting.
Okay.
And then number three is cold baths or cold
Yes.
showers,
Yes.
cold dunks. So I prefer chanting and breathing, to be honest. And they're the top two. So, hey,
Yes.
here we go.
I love
But,
that.
and that's proven scientifically. So
Yeah.
that's nothing woo woo, nothing religious, nothing spiritual. It's
Yes.
facts.
Yes.
Also, they've seen increased alpha brain wave activity. So on an EEG with someone who does chanting and chants, they can see increased activity with alpha waves. And that's linked to states of relaxation, meditation, reduced anxiety. Also, cardiovascular benefits.
Yes.
So it lowers blood pressure, reduces heart rate. So that's a big one. And it is Heart Month right now, right, in February.
Absolutely.
So that's, yeah.
I love that. And to dance, I'm going to jump in here because I dance with Suzanne's mantras. And when you talk about, getting your steps in and cardiovascular, getting that heart rate up, and you are chanting and you are moving, it is habit stacking extraordinaire. And
I love that.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning the heart and the cardiovascular. Perfect.
Yeah. And then, of course, emotional, right? And psychological. So everything to do with your brain, to worries, it's shown to improve mood because it releases all those happy hormones as well, right? When you chant or you sing in a group or alone, it's pretty hard to get, well, you can get sad if you listen to a sad song. And again, if you hear words, right? The words are really powerful. So if you're singing to a song written in English and you can understand the words and the words are really sad, well, that can make you really sad.
Yes.
If you're listening to mantra is just going to lift you up. Mantra is not going to make you mad, make you sad because the words are uplifting. Yeah. So very, very powerful. So it's just stacked up of, power over power over power because it's meditation, it's breathing, it's connection, it's so many things, so many goodies, one on top of the other. I cannot even imagine my life without it, for real, right now. And it's something that can be really easy to do, very soothing. And we'll get into that if you're wondering what to do. Just humming. Humming is Nada Yoga.
Okay.
And it's very soothing. And it's something everybody does without even knowing why sometimes, right? So, and that's a form of Nada Yoga, just humming a tune. You feel the vibrations and the sound because your mouth is closed. The sound is inside your head and it's vibrating. Very soothing if you're having difficulty falling asleep or waking up at night. Just self-soothing. Sometimes if you feel a rush of anxiety coming on, and you can start just humming and just a sound. It doesn't have to be a tune even. Just hum a straight sound. And you go with your breath and that's going to automatically slow down your exhale, right? Longer your exhale.
That's right.
And that's going to calm your nervous system right down. So that's chanting 101 right there for you. It's just doing I love
that. I love that. And that reminder that when we are, some of you who are listening, you may start to notice that you do that automatically when you are calming yourself, when you are soothing yourself. And if you're not,
a baby.
Yes.
It's our reflex. But you take a baby, if you have a newborn, whatever you have in your arms, and automatically you're going to want to hum. So, and they're humming as well.
Yes.
Like babies are humming.
Yes.
And they're often falling asleep humming to themselves. So it brings us back to our baby stage, right?
Yeah. And that, again, that connection. And I remember when my kids were young. Now I wasn't chanting at that time, but the breathing, as you were saying about, and I was probably humming when I think about it now, because I was going into the longer exhales, and when I was soothing them, sitting on a ball sometimes and
Mhm.
bouncing and rolling a little bit and just lengthening out that exhalation, and
Mm.
now when I'm thinking back. So yes, 101 right away. So jot that down as a reminder. And you reminded me to circle back here to the spiritual part, because from a heart health perspective, from a heart perspective, connected to loving kindness. So I have shared a loving kindness meditation on this podcast a few times now, one of my favorite, but you have a more personal connection to loving kindness and to mantra associated with loving kindness. Do you want to share a little? I think it's so cool, Suzanne. Do you want to share a little bit about your inspiration for this focus right now, actually, when we're in this month and in this chapter of your life on loving kindness meditation and mantra?
Yes, for sure. So right now we are in the middle of a session, which I call the Miracle Circle, and it's a small group of women coming together once a week, and we're chanting Om Mani Padme Hum, which is the Dalai Lama's favorite mantra, or mantra of predilection. I'm not sure it's an English word, but his mantra of choice, let's say.
Right.
So when I started thinking about what I wanted to offer in the fall, I wasn't quite sure because I always go with, intuition and
Mhm.
feeling. And so I had spent some time this summer with my daughters at the cottage, and both of them are very spiritual, but also very much into the Kundalini yoga sphere.
Mhm.
And they're world travelers, so they're always like going to different places to do some meditations and visiting at the same time. So they went to India and they went to mostly Europe, but all this to say that we've had discussions around my daughter meeting the Dalai Lama on her birthday. It was her 33rd birthday. And on that day, she got the grace. I don't even want to use the word lucky because it's almost not appropriate, but she got the grace to meet with the Dalai Lama, and he blessed her. So that was an experience. She really was transformed just by, that very, very short. She didn't get even to exchange words or anything, but just being blessed by the Dalai Lama. And then somehow she got in those surroundings, and she got to meet with the Dalai Lama's spiritual leader as well, his mentor, if you wish. And so that was like something when she mentioned that, and I kind of, with all these experiences coming together, I just got the nudge that I
Mm.
needed to chant the Om Mani Padme Hum mantra. And so I started practicing it. And although I had recorded it previously, because it is on my album,
Yes.
um, it's a mantra that was actually introduced to me by Danielle and Jose, which are former students who have that studio in Ottawa and with which I record my mantra music. So they had put a melody to Om Mani Padme Hum and asked me if I wanted to put it on my album. So that was
Wow.
like my first contact with the mantra. And then I'm like, oh, I need to integrate this mantra, more of this mantra into my life. And then I got gifted at Christmas. The girls bought me I have a little, I forgot what they're called, a tanka. So that Tibetan Buddhists have crafted. So they're works of art where it's a tapestry,
Yes.
and they paint. Um,
Beautiful.
some deities. So I've got Buddhas and different deities. So I really got a strong connection to this mantra and started chanting that mantra, and then decided, okay, I need to do a group that's going to be chanting that mantra and associate it with loving kindness meditation, because it is the loving kindness mantra in Sanskrit. Very linked to the Dalai Lama's prayer, which is also the loving kindness meditation. So it's all linked together. So you and I and my girls, and in between, all these connections, and this circle is very, very strong. I think you can attest, but there's this energy of love and this heart opening that is happening right now, and that I think, for myself anyways, need so desperately these days, because we need those soothing words and those soothing sounds. And to feel loved, to feel compassion, we need to feel like we're supported by a community. We feel like we need to feel safe. So all of these words are very strong. And Om Mani Padme Hum, if it is translated in English, is the jewel is in the lotus.
Okay.
So it's very poetic. Mm-hmm. And again, there's nothing religious about this. So if you don't, you are not even chanting a deity's name. It's just the jewel is in the lotus. But it's got it's full of meaning. It's very full of meaning. So the lotus being, a flower that is a water flower, and it's anchored in mud. And so what they're saying with that is that, through going through the process of cleaning our souls from the mucky stuff, right up to the beautiful flower, which is the lotus, which brings us to enlightenment. So there's a whole bunch of meaning. It can be very poetic. It can be also just how you're feeling it when you're chanting in your body, again, can just come back to simple, how you feel the vibrations, what it does, if it calms your mind, if it calms you down. So again, it can be spiritual. It can be totally detached from spirituality, and just for the sake of chanting these efficient Sanskrit words.
Oh, so thank you so much. I love that explanation. And I actually really felt this idea of really moving through the mud right now. Mm-hmm. We are in muck. We are moving through the mud right now. And anything that we can do, which again is personal, where we are managing our own mental health and our emotions, knowing that our voice is always with us. So it is always a tool with us. And the fact that it affects people around us, and because it's vibrational. And so we are affecting our family members. When we affect our energy every time we step out in the world, whether we're going to the post office or the grocery store, I like to say we're helping. We're helping.
Absolutely.
And the more that we can practice, it just gets stronger and stronger. So on that note, I would like to actually I will be putting in the show notes your website that has the connection to your album, kuvalayamusic.com. So you can go right finishing this podcast episode today. I would really encourage you, especially when it's fresh in your mind and you feel inspired, and you can move, you can sit, you can walk. We've also said, yes, you can empty the dishwasher. We're of course circling back to habit stacking and to making this a habit, because it is in the repetition that I find that there is so much power. And we've really moved away from repetition in our lives. We're always searching, right, for the next shiny object, for the next thing to do, for the next exercise. We've got Instagram and TikTok and everything's just coming at us all the time. And so that ability to focus on one thing, and even to take one of the mantras, let's say, for example, off of the album, and just try it for a week, just in the morning, just, play it, sing it, move with it, and notice the changes, notice how you feel, and notice that we've talked about this before quite often, that how do you know when the mantra is making a difference? And for a lot of us who have been, and still beginners for sure, you'll be driving somewhere, you'll be walking somewhere, and the mantra, you don't have to think about, you don't have to memorize it. It comes back to you. It just keeps repeating in the back of your mind, like a soothing song, as opposed to some of our thoughts that are just chattering, monkey mind. Sometimes, again, because we are prone to more negativity than positivity, this is what our brain is. The mantras tend to override this. They override it. And so as you're releasing into sleep at night, right, as you're noticing that there's some script that is playing over and over in your mind, and you're like, I want to replace that script. And so humming will do that. Om will do that. And then you can,
there's different ones, and there's very easy ones. Like if you listen to the album, I have one that people find really soothing, Ramadasa. So they're just little syllables. They're very short syllables, repeated. And I'm really so happy that you mentioned that because mantra is powerful, not just because of the letters and how it's associated, but it's the repetition. That's what they're meant to do. And like there's a practice that's called japa. And in japa, you have your mala, which is that beaded. Some people wear it as necklaces,
a necklace,
but they're not really meant to be necklaces. They're like, they can be called prayer beads, but they're there to count your repetitions. And usually like a practice is 108 counts. So you repeat these words for 108 counts. So if you do this every day, well, guess what? The first thing that you're going to notice is that that mantra is going to pop into your mind, and it is going to override every other negative thought that can arise. So that's very, very powerful. And like to relieve anxiety, I can't even, describe how helpful this can be, because we hear so many negative words in a day. And like you said, there's so much chatter everywhere. If you scroll on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, Facebook, it's just chatter, 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 chatter. And a lot of the time there's like a lot of negative words, and then you go to bed and then that all pops up in your head. So you really need something to override that.
Yes.
And I am a firm believer, and not just a believer, because I live it every day. I use it every day. I know it works. But you have to try it, and not just once. So repetition when you chant mantra, but repetition in practice too. So you're going to find a difference doing it once, that's for sure. But if you want to see long-term changes, you need to practice every day. And it doesn't have to be long. It can be chanting a mantra. If you listen to one track on my album, is between 6 and 10 minutes.
Yes.
And so just listening to it every day, and then you'll get the hang of it and you'll start chanting it. And the first thing you know, you're chanting the mantra. So Satanama Ramadasa Om Shanti. Shanti means peace. Yes. I really love this one. So Om Shanti Om. And Om refers to the sound of the universe. So it's the universal mantra that is so widely spread and so chanted everywhere. But all it means is it's everything. It's all encompassing. So it's the sound of the universe. Yeah. And most mantras start with Om or finish with Om. It's very powerful on its own as well.
So on that note, would you like to do an Om right now with our listeners, just as a way that will bring our chat, our interview to
Absolutely.
a close? But before we do that, Suzanne, is there anything else that you would like to add?
Well, maybe if you want to find me on Facebook, on Instagram, my website, they're all under Kuvalaya, which is my artist name. Actually, Kuvalaya, when I picked this name, I was looking for my name, Suzanne. I was looking for a Sanskrit translation, which I couldn't find Suzanne, but Suzanne means lily. And I found out that Kuvalaya is a water lily. So that's how I got my name, Kuvalaya. And I was with one of my daughters when I found that out, and I'm like, oh, this is the name. So Kuvalaya is kind of my soul project name. So if you're looking for my music, you have to be looking for Kuvalaya. And I invite you to join me on Facebook, because every Monday morning I do a session, a mantra session on Facebook Live. So it's Kuvalaya Music on Facebook. And I'll be starting a French group too this week. So if you speak French and you would like to experiment mantra in French, it's still going to be Sanskrit mantra, but explanations in French, it's going to be on Thursday mornings. So that's all free, and it's on Facebook. My music, my album is on all platforms. So iTunes Spotify, YouTube, you can find it everywhere, and on my website for sure.
Thank you so much again for mentioning your French offerings. I think that's so amazing. And for those of you listening, where that just piqued your interest right there, I think that's amazing. So I will have that information in the show notes. So definitely have a peek there. We are, we're going to finish now. Audio sometimes we're good. Now, when I say we, I'm not opening my mouth. Suzanne will, or very quietly, just because of the audio. But Suzanne will bring us into one Om. And then I will bring us to a close. So I bring it.
So if you don't mind, Lorrie, I'm going to do one Om and 3 Shanti Shanti.
Beautiful.
Om to finish.
Beautiful. All right. Over to you, my friend.
Okay. So taking a deep breath in to chant. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Just beautiful, Suzanne. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts, for chatting with me today. Every single time we speak, I learn something new. And so for all of you listening today, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy your chanting journey. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you, Lorrie.
Namaste.
Namaste.
If you love this episode, I guarantee you're going to love exploring all the amazing opportunities that await us in reclaiming our awesomeness together. So come on over to my Facebook group, Women's Wellness Community for women wanting to rock their Me Now years. Or let's connect over on Instagram at Habit Guru 365 and make the Habit Guru podcast your healthy new habit.